Let's hope fifth time's the charm, and things will actually work this go around. Ms. Murphy, noting for the record, again, of course, the presence of the jury, counsel, and the defendant, we will resume the questioning. Officer Diebold, can I just ask you to acknowledge for the record you understand you're still under oath?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Murphy, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Officer, on the screen there is what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 4. Can you indicate on your screen, I think you can draw on it with your finger, where it was that you initially responded that morning?
When I initially responded, there were officers doing traffic control, I believe, already, somewhat right here. So I responded right here to shut off traffic going eastbound Flamingo.
Okay, and you completely stopped the traffic?
Yes.
Once that other officers were, I guess, on the other side, the east side of Flamingo, and you were on the west side, what other steps did you take at the scene in that initial response time?
In the initial response, I was just help coordinating, shutting down all lanes of traffic on Flamingo, Las Vegas Boulevard, and trying to gather, and after the scene had somewhat stabilized and the cab had been extinguished, then started gathering preliminary information from all the drivers involved.
Do you remember speaking with a cab driver named Jonathan Gutierrez?
Yes. As I was actually initially stopping traffic right here, he had pulled up in the turn lane right here and stated that he had seen the incident which happened and had everything on video.
And did you, I guess, alert homicide detectives or detectives to Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any questions for this witness?
We have no questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. May I see by show of hands if any jurors have questions for this witness? Seeing none, Officer Diebold, you are excused. Thank you. Might just step as your exit forward.
Your Honor, this statement calls Sergeant Conk.
Sergeant Conk.
Telling the truth, the whole truth, and anything but the truth, and help you God?
Yes.
Can you see it? Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
First name Brandon, B-R-A-N-D-O-N. Last name Conk, C-O-N-K.
May I begin, Your Honor?
You may, Mr. Stitt. Thank you.
Sergeant, I want to direct your attention to the early morning hours of February 21st of 2013. Sir, on that day, how were you employed and what was your duty assignment?
Employed with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department as a patrol supervisor for the area encompassing the Las Vegas Strip.
And is that an area command that Metro designates on that portion of the Strip?
Yes, it's called the Convention Center Area Command, and it encompasses from Sahara all the way to Russell, and it includes the entire Strip area there.
And as a supervisor, you would have held the rank of sergeant at that time?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I previously showed Defense Counsel States Exhibits 6 through 11. I move for those exhibits to be admitted at this time.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
States 6 through 11 will be admitted and you may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Conk, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury how you first aware of or became aware of an incident that took place on the Strip just after 4 a.m. on that day?
Yes. I was driving eastbound on Flamingo away from the Strip when I first heard the radio dispatch of a vehicle collision involving a vehicle that was fully involved in a fire. As I was driving eastbound on Flamingo, I received that and I immediately flipped a U-turn. It was surprising to me because I had just come from that area and I hadn't seen or heard anything. And that's how I was advised of the situation. So
now, when you hang a U-turn, is there a vernacular or a phrase that is used about how you respond using the code system?
Yes, given the severity of the way the call was dispatched to us, I responded code 3, which basically means red lights and siren, and that It enables us to get to the scene quicker, advise other motorists that we're en route and to get out of the way.
And were you in uniform and in a marked patrol unit?
Yes.
When you arrived back at the intersection of Flamingo and Las Vegas Boulevard, what do you observe?
As I approached the intersection, the first thing I saw was a large flame coming from a vehicle. I remember the flame was so high it was reaching the traffic light, and that stood out to me, how big the flame was. And I also saw several vehicles were involved in a major collision scattered throughout the intersection.
And did it become relatively quickly aware to you that you were going to be the supervisor for this incident immediately and for some time in the immediate future, and your responsibilities shift a little bit at that point?
Yes. In this incident, I'm the only supervisor that evening for the Las Vegas Strip, and designated myself as the incident commander in an established incident command system, which is our way of managing such a large-scale crime scene.
And that involves triggering a lot of different protocols, being an incident commander in that location in an event like this, correct?
Correct.
And on the screen in front of you, should be the small screen in front of you, Sergeant, is State's Exhibit 6. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what we're looking at?
This is the trunk of one of the patrol vehicles. I don't believe this one is my patrol vehicle, but as incident commander, I assigned somebody to be my scribe, and as information came in, before things would be rapidly evolving, we wanted to make sure we wrote everything down, the units involved, vehicles involved, and the event number, those types of things, so that it would prepare me to give a briefing.
Literally, in the white portion of metro vehicles, this is a very common occurrence that occurs in major incidents where information is compiled in a written fashion, a visual fashion, in the way we see it in this photograph.
Yes, it is.
Now, Sergeant, based upon the incident protocol, you know that as the director of this scene, chaotic at one point, and as things progress, that you're, as part of those protocols, going to be giving a briefing to a number of different units and divisions as you developed information in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this information that we see in this photograph is part of that information that you brief homicide detectives and other detectives and investigators that are arriving at the scene.
Yes.
If I could go to exhibit number 7. This would be at the upper left of the trunk. Can you describe what we're looking at there? Can you see the actual writing on that one? I can show you the actual photograph.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. On the top, what is the information that's listed at the top?
At the very top middle, you can see the beginning of the event number. To the left, you'll see where we've listed the victim vehicles involved in the collisions. And then below that, you'll see GSW victims, that's gunshot wound victims. And then below that, the suspect vehicle is listed.
And at this point, the information is the gunshot wound victims was from a Maserati. You had Freddie Walters. We have a date of birth, a California DL, a driver's license, and it's parenthetically referenced as the passenger.
Yes.
And then the driver was at least additionally identified as Kenneth Clutch.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then down below, the suspect vehicle. Can you explain what we're looking at? I know the first one's kind of self-evident, but could you explain the second one for us?
Yes, the description given of the suspect was a BMA, which is short for black male adult, and NFD is short for no further description.
And then if I could have exhibit 11 to the right side of the trunk. What are we looking at there?
There at the top, you can see the other half of the event number, 0554, and then a list of all of the units under my command during this incident. And down below, you'll see the units that are available to me at the command post that I can assign out, the fire department engine that responded, and the watch commander's call sign, and just pretty much where people are at and where they've got units at UMC and units assigned there at the incident.
And the watch commander is referenced in the first column with the column with the initials WC.
Correct.
Now, Sergeant Conn, can you tell what your assessment was and how you distribute the assets available to you to preserve the crime scene, which is obviously the intersection, but what you know fairly early on is going to be much broader than that. Can you enlighten us as to what you did in that regard?
Right. Incident command follows the same priorities. It's always life safety first, and then scene preservation. So as soon as we were able to triage and get the victim off to the hospital, and for the fire department to extinguish the vehicle where there was additional victims, then at that point, my main priority at that time is to lock down the entire scene, sidewalks, streets, to keep any pedestrians or vehicles from entering the crime scene.
And ultimately, what occurred within a short period of time is from one solid block, north, east, south, and west, on the boulevard and the streets to the side were completely shut down to not only vehicular traffic, but pedestrian traffic as well.
Correct.
And that the only personnel that were on that scene were law enforcement, fire department, and medical.
Correct.
I have no further questions possible.
Thank you.
No questions,
Mr.
General.
Walker? Thank you. We'll see if any any jurors have questions for this witness. Seeing no questions, Sergeant Conn, you're excused. Thank you for your time, please. Mind your step and stand for the box. Today's next witness.
Nicholas Bergandi.
You're about to give an infraction, tell me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and nothing else.
Yes, ma'am.
If you can please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Nicholas, Nicholas Bergandi, B-R-I-G-A-N-D-I.
Please welcome everyone to your
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed?
With the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
How were you assigned with Metro back in February of 2013?
I was a patrol officer assigned to Convention Center Area Command.
And can you give us just a sense of the geographical area the Convention Center Command would encompass?
At that time, the boundaries were from Swenson to Industrial, east to west, and from Russell to Sahara, north to south.
And do you remember what shift you were working?
Graveyard shift.
Obviously, you were working in the early morning hours of February the 21st or 13th.
Yes, I was.
And at some point, were you dispatched to the area of Flamingo and Las Vegas Boulevard?
Yes, I was.
Can you describe for the members of the jury how it was that you were dispatched to the area?
I was assigned to another call for service at the Flamingo Hotel. I was down in the basement at the Flamingo Hotel writing a citation regarding another call that I was on. I got hailed by Flamingo security that there had been a bad car accident right outside the Flamingo on the strip, and the car was on fire. At that time, I stopped what I was doing in reference to the citation that I was issuing, and I ran up onto Las Vegas Boulevard with security personnel from the Flamingo.
Now, on the screen in front of you there and on the larger screen as well is what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 4. And that's obviously Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo, correct?
Correct.
From looking at that photograph, can you, with your finger on the screen in front of you, show the members of the jury where it was that you responded to?
Initially, the security office is back this way, and I came out with security and walked right out through the driveway here onto Las Vegas Boulevard.
When you got to that location, what were your observations?
My initial observations were I was a little overwhelmed at first. I had prior experience in the military. I served in combat in Iraq, as well as at the World Trade Center during the 9/11 events. And my initial assessment was whether it was an accident. I initially thought it was an accident, that it was with the destruction and the carnage, that it was kind of on par with something similar to what I experienced, in the military and at 9/11.
When you initially got there, was the cab still burning?
Yes, it was.
And I assume there were civilians in the area?
That's correct.
Were you one of the first officers to respond?
I was.
What did you do once you got there and you made those initial observations about the area?
Initially observed a car accident involving the black Maserati and the other vehicle here. I ran past that, so I was in between the taxi and where the other car accident had occurred. And citizens were telling me that people were burning alive in the cab. I tried to get me to the taxi, and I saw that the flames were approximately 30, 40 feet high. And I observed Flamingo security personnel and some citizens extract a male from the Maserati. I then assisted them at the Maserati and instructed them. We pulled the driver back to a grass area, which is right over here. And I was concerned that the cab was going to have a secondary explosion.
And so there was a male extracted from the Maserati and put over in that grass area?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you go over and render aid, or did you observe whether anyone attempted to render aid?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe what happened with that?
Myself, security from Flamingo, and citizens were attempting to do chest compressions and perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on the male that was pulled from the vehicle.
Now, you mentioned as you were doing that, you had concerns that there might be another explosion from the cab?
Yes, and that's why we had moved him back from where he was extracted from the vehicle.
Okay. What did you do next at the scene, or what did you observe next?
Well, initially, I responded. I gave out radio traffic. Initially, thought that it was a car accident. I noticed the male was bleeding from the mouth, and through all the chaos and confusion, there were citizens, people on the sidewalk stating that he'd been shot, and the black Range Rover was involved.
Did you ever get approached by someone else who was injured or was associated with the Maserati?
Yes, it did.
And do you remember at all what that individual looked like?
The individual that had told me I don't recall.
Okay. Did you ever speak to anyone else who claimed to have been shot or was hurt in this incident?
Yes, I did.
And you don't remember who that person was?
His name was Freddie Walters.
Okay. And when you, how was it that you came in contact, I guess, with Mr. Walters?
A citizen told me that there was another passenger in the Maserati and that he had ran northbound down Las Vegas Boulevard, kind of out of view here where Flamingo Circle is. And I'll put it right here with my finger. He was a little bit north of that, and that he was on a cell phone attempting to try to get a ride and leave the scene.
Did you speak to him?
Yes, I did.
And were you in uniform when you spoke to him?
Yes, I was.
When you saw him, can you describe what his demeanor was?
He was uncooperative, and I noticed he had a gunshot wound to his left arm.
Okay. And so you could see that he had been injured?
Yes.
Did you ask him what happened to him?
Yes, I did.
What did he tell you?
He told me that he and a friend of his who was in the driver of the Maserati, he identified him as Kenny Clutch. Freddie stated that they were at a rap concert at Aria nightclub where French Montana and James Jones were performing. And while they were driving northbound on Las Vegas Boulevard, a black Range Rover pulled up next to their Maserati. The windows were rolled down, and that Kenny Clutch had words with an occupant of the Range Rover.
And did he, well, do you remember what you told detectives about what he described the conversation was between Mr. Cherry and the driver of the Range Rover?
Just the window was rolled down, and I'm not sure whether it was Kenneth Cherry or occupants of the Range Rover. Somebody said, "What's up?"